When I opened my eyes, the first person I saw was my stepbrother Alan, smiling like he'd won the lottery. "Welcome back, Lamont," he said, his voice soft, gentle even. But something in his eyes was wrong, like he'd gotten comfortable in a life that wasn't his. I wanted to ask where Sonia was, but my throat burned, my body weak, and all I could do was blink. Alan leaned in closer. "Don't worry, everything's under control now. You just rest." Everything's under control? He was wearing my watch. His hand casually rested on my hospital bed, on the spot where Sonia used to hold mine. I tried to move, to speak, to scream. Nothing. My body refused me. The nurse said I'd been in a coma for 9 months. Car accident. Severe brain trauma, miraculous survival. But when I asked for Sonia, Alan smiled again, tight-lipped. "She's been through a lot. You'll see her soon." I saw her the next morning. She walked into the room holding 2 coffee cups. One for her, one for him, no hesitation, no shame. Just a tired smile like I was an old friend they were checking on out of guilt. Her hair was shorter, her tone colder. She called me Lamont, not Honey. And she didn't sit beside me. She sat next to Alan, the man who once stole my father's approval, now stealing my wife. The 3 of us used to be a family. Now I was a guest in my own marriage, but I wasn't the same man they buried under tubes. 9 months ago. Something in me had changed, and if they thought waking up from a coma was the hard part, they were about to learn what real nightmares look like. I was Lamont Rivers, 32, co-founder of a logistics firm that grew from a backroom startup into a multi-million-dollar operation in just 5 years. I had always been the silent half of the business. Alan handled the PR, the flash, the social media smiles. I built the back end, negotiated contracts, managed risk. I preferred numbers to people, because numbers never betrayed you. When I married Sonia, I thought I had found someone who didn't care about appearances either. She wasn't like the girls Alan chased. No stilettos, no fake lashes, no constant selfies. She wore cardigans in summer and always carried a secondhand book. I fell for her quietly, like slipping into a warm bath. There was no dramatic confession. One day I realized she had keys to my place, toothbrush in my drawer, and I was planning grocery lists with her in mind. We were married within a year. No big wedding. Just us, her younger sister Melissa, Alan, and a judge. I thought I knew her. Looking back, I think I loved the silence between us more than the words. We didn't talk much, but I trusted that the quiet was safe, that she stayed because she wanted to. That when she curled beside me at night and rested her head on my chest, she was hearing my heartbeat and not calculating the resale value of my company shares. She used to trace circles on my arm as we lay in bed. "If anything ever happened to you," she'd whisper, "I wouldn't know how to breathe." She didn't mean it, because 9 months later, I woke up to find her breathing just fine, in a house I paid for, sharing breakfast with my stepbrother. Alan had always been a leech. Our father married his mother when I was 10. Alan was 12, loud, attention-hungry, and always watching. We weren't blood, but he wore my last name like a trophy. My father used to say we were brothers now, and I had to share everything. He made it a rule: birthday gifts, video games, my bike. If I had something Alan didn't, Dad took it from me and gave it to him. That pattern never stopped. Alan couldn't pass college. I hired him at my company. He didn't understand logistics, so I made him a brand rep. He failed upward thanks to me. I told myself it was fine, that we were family. He used to call Sonia sis-in-law with a grin that stayed too long. But I never thought, never once imagined, she'd smile back. Now I was the man in the hospital bed, and they were the couple with matching coffee mugs. Melissa came to see me once. She stood at the doorway, hesitant, her eyes flickering to Alan's car outside. "She's different now," she said softly. "After your accident, she changed." I wanted to ask why she hadn't stopped it, but I saw the way her hands trembled. I saw the hesitation, the guilt. And I remembered that Melissa was just a kid when Sonia raised her. She probably still saw her sister as some kind of savior, but she wasn't saving anyone now. I tried to rebuild my body quietly. I didn't talk much during recovery. I smiled at doctors, said thank you to nurses. But inside, I was cataloging. Details. Alan's expensive watch, Sonia's upgraded wardrobe, the car keys to my Range Rover on Alan's keyring. Every visit from them, I acted weaker than I was. I let them believe I was still foggy, still adjusting, still too broken to question. Alan liked being seen as the caretaker. He'd sigh theatrically and say, "He was my brother, man. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't let Sonia handle everything alone." He thought I was deaf when he said it. He thought I was already gone. They weren't ready for the man who woke up, because Lamont Rivers, the quiet, loyal husband, the dependable founder, the silent partner, he died in that crash. The man who woke up in his place had no intention of picking up where they left off. The first crack appeared when I asked for my wedding ring. I said it casually, during one of Sonia's evening visits. She had brought fruit, peeled, sliced, arranged on a hospital tray like she was still playing the role of a dutiful wife. She even dabbed my mouth with a napkin as I chewed. That used to make me feel loved. Now it made my skin crawl. "Where's my ring?" I asked, eyes locked on hers. She froze for half a second. It was quick, almost invisible, but I saw it. Her fingers fidgeted with the napkin. Then she smiled. "Oh, that old thing? They must have taken it off during surgery. They usually. Bag all personal effects," I said. "Can you check with the hospital?" She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Alan came in 5 minutes later, holding 2 lattes. The smell turned my stomach. I used to drink the same blend with him at the office. Now it smelled like betrayal. "Bro," he said, walking in like he owned the room. "You're looking better every day." I smiled politely and turned to Sonia. "Did you ask Alan about the ring? He was there the day I got admitted." Alan's hand paused mid-air. The cup trembled only slightly, but enough. Sonia cut in fast. "We'll call about it later. Don't stress yourself." I let it go. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, when Sonia left her phone on the chair beside my bed to use the restroom, I reached for it with trembling fingers. I wasn't strong, but I was desperate. I entered her old passcode. Still worked. There were no texts between her and Alan. Not one. It was too clean, too careful. But the gallery told a different story. A photo taken 6 months ago. A dinner table, set for 2. Candles. Wine. The reflection in the glass showed Alan's arm resting around her shoulders. Another one. 4 months ago. Sonia in my hoodie. Alan behind her, both of them laughing at something off camera. My hoodie. My life. My place. I closed the gallery and slipped the phone back before she returned. I didn't confront her. I didn't break down. I smiled the next time she brought fruit. I let her peel the orange and pretended I hadn't just watched her use that same hand to cut my brother's jaw in a photo. Days passed. The silence grew heavier. On the surface, nothing changed. Alan still dropped her off. She still played the perfect wife. The nurses still smiled and called me lucky to have someone so devoted, but the illusion was cracking. It shattered the day Alan handed me a set of business documents. "Just a few things we need to review," he said. "For the firm, we've been keeping things afloat, but there are some legal gaps. Your signature would help." I flipped through the pages slowly. Nothing jumped out immediately, but then I reached the last section, a clause buried in fine print. Power of attorney. Full financial control in case of permanent mental impairment, signed by Sonia, witnessed by Alan. I looked up. Alan was already smiling. Too confident, too sure. "You want me to sign this?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "It's just in case something happens again. You know, for security." I held the pen, clicked it once, twice. Then I dropped it on. "The tray. Take this out of my room." Alan blinked. "What?" "Take it," I repeated, voice low, "and get the hell out." He scoffed. "Lamont, don't make this harder than it is." "Hard?" I said. You haven't seen hard yet. Alan's jaw tightened. We've been doing everything for you. We've kept things together. Sonia cried for weeks. You have no idea what she's been through. I saw the photos, I said flatly. Silence. He didn't deny it. Just turned away and walked out, the documents clutched in his fist. Sonia didn't come the next day. Instead, Melissa arrived. Her expression was uncertain, hesitant, like she wasn't sure whose side she was supposed to be on. Sonia's been sick, she said. Physically. Or morally? She flinched. You knew? I'm awake now, I said, and I remember everything, every face, every voice, every lie. Melissa sat down, her voice barely above a whisper. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that she was grieving, that she thought you wouldn't come back. Then why hide it? She was scared of how you'd look at her, of what you'd do. I stared at the window, letting the silence stretch between us. She used to talk about you like you were her anchor, Melissa added. But now when she mentions your name, it's like she's afraid of drowning. I closed my eyes. Good. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was pretending it didn't rip something out of me. Every time Sonia walked into my hospital room, I had to remind myself to breathe evenly. I had to remember how the old Lamont would smile at her, how he would reach out, take her hand, and believe her love was enough. But my hands stayed cold now. I couldn't feel anything in them except the pressure of everything I wasn't allowed to say. At night, when the nurses turned the lights down and the hallway monitors beeped in rhythm with my pulse, I would lie there thinking about the life I had before the crash. Not the money, not the business, just the small things. Sunday mornings, her head on my chest, the way she whispered jokes during movies, the humming sound she made while folding laundry, how she once asked me if I believed in soulmates and I'd said, only when they bring their own toothbrush. We laughed that night. She kissed me like she wanted forever. Now forever tasted like metal and disinfectant. The photos were branded into my mind. Her laugh, Alan's arm, my hoodie. 9 months. 9. That's how long I was asleep. Long enough for my marriage to rot. Long enough for her to rewrite our vows in another man's bed, and not just any man. My stepbrother. I didn't tell anyone, but sometimes at night, I'd see them. My mind would pull me into these vivid dreams. Sonia and Alan kissing on my living room couch, drinking from my coffee mug, opening my drawers, tossing out the framed photo from our wedding, replacing it with one of theirs. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the sheets twisted around my legs like restraints. The doctors said I was lucky to survive. But survival has a different meaning when everything you lived for moved on without you. The worst moment came 3 days after Alan tried to get my signature. The nurses were talking outside my room. They didn't know I was awake. Poor guy, one said. His wife and brother, and now the company too? I waited until their voices disappeared down the hallway before I let myself react. I stared at the ceiling, my chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, but inside I was unraveling. I'd built that company with bleeding hands. I slept 3 hours a night for 2 years while Sonia rubbed my shoulders and told me we were getting close. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, because I thought I was building something for us. Now she was wearing jewelry I bought her while sitting across from my brother at the dinner table I assembled. I wanted to scream. But there was no one left in the world I could scream to who hadn't already chosen their side. Even Melissa, kind as she was, spoke to me with the caution of someone who feared I might snap. Maybe I would. There were moments I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the eyes staring back. Not angry. Just hollow, like all the things I believed in had been drained out, drop by drop. Alan called one night. I didn't answer, but the voicemail came through. He sounded calm. Tired even. Lamont. I know you probably hate me. Maybe I deserve that. But none of this was planned. It just happened. Life moved on. I don't expect you to understand right now. I just hope, someday, you will. I played that message 4 times. Not once did he say sorry. Not once did he say Sonia missed me. He hoped I'd understand. Understand what? That my wife crawled into his bed because grief was too heavy? That betrayal becomes easier when no one's around to witness it? That message wasn't regret. It was a warning. A signal that he wasn't done yet. So I started preparing. Every spare moment between physical therapy and checkups, I used to rebuild more than my muscles. I rewired my mind. Every time I stood in front of the window and forced myself to balance on one foot, I told myself I wasn't just standing for rehab. I was standing to face them. Every time I took a shaky step down the hallway, gripping the bar like my life depended on it, I imagined walking back into my house, opening the door, and seeing their faces crumble. That image was what carried me through the hardest nights. I didn't want revenge that ended in screaming. I wanted silence. The kind of silence that follows after everything has fallen apart, when the people who betrayed you finally realize they miscalculated. I wanted to be the ghost in the room, the one they tried to bury, only to find standing again, uninvited. I didn't want them to be scared. I wanted them to be ashamed, and they would be. Soon. The day I was discharged, Sonia didn't come. Alan did. He brought a bouquet of cheap lilies and a bottle of off-brand multivitamins like he was visiting someone mildly sick, not the man whose life he helped erase. I watched him set the flowers on the side table without looking me in the eyes. "I'll bring the car around," he muttered, turning to leave. "Don't bother," I said. "Melissa's picking me up." He paused, then gave me a half smile. That didn't touch his eyes. "You're still holding on to all this?" "Not for long," I replied. When Melissa's car pulled up, I didn't speak the whole ride. She glanced at me a few times, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "You sure you want to go back to the house?" she finally asked. "It's still mine," I said. When we pulled into the driveway, I felt nothing. Not nostalgia, not anger, just purpose. I stepped inside and was met with silence. The same living room, same leather couch, same rug I'd picked, out with Sonia 2 years ago, but now everything felt foreign. There were picture frames with Alan's face in places mine used to be. New curtains, different scent, still my house. I walked into the bedroom. The bedsheets had been changed, gray, instead of the blue Sonia liked when we were married. Alan's cologne lingered on the pillows, but what caught my eye was a drawer, left slightly ajar. I opened it. Inside, beneath a folded stack of receipts, was a second phone. Not Sonia's regular one. Old model. No fingerprint lock. Just a passcode. 4 digits. The day we got married. I entered it. Messages flooded the screen. From Alan. Hundreds of them. But what turned my blood to ice was the folder labeled Plan B. I opened it. There were screenshots of insurance policies, mine, ones I didn't remember signing, health, life, asset transfer protocols. In one image, Alan had forwarded Sonia a scanned form, full death benefit to spouse and business partner in the event of irreversible neurological damage. Another file, a calendar entry, date marked, final dosage, after next PT session. My mouth went dry. They hadn't just moved on. They hadn't just fallen in love. They had planned to end me. Slowly, quietly, through caretaking and pills, through forged documents and grief. They weren't counting on me waking up. They were counting on me dying quietly without asking questions. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through my teeth, knuckles white around the phone. They wanted my name, my company, my silence. But now, they were going to get something else entirely. I didn't tell Melissa what I found. She was kind, maybe even on my side, but I wasn't risking anything now. Not when every conversation, every glance, every breath might be monitored. They wanted me out of the picture, and I had just stepped back into the frame. The first step was pretending nothing had changed. For the next 3 days, I went along with their plan. I answered Alan's casual texts, thanked Sonia when she dropped off a fruit basket. I smiled when neighbors asked how recovery was going. I let everyone believe I was still grateful to be alive, still adjusting, still too soft to suspect what was bubbling under the surface. But every night when the house fell quiet, I dug deeper. I traced the insurance company's phone number and called using a disposable SIM card. Posed as Alan's assistant. Requested a policy review. The agent didn't hesitate. Alan's signature was on the file. So was Sonia's. The payout structure was crystal clear. In the event of my death, Sonia would receive the full insurance benefit. Alan would inherit my share of the company, already agreed upon in principle, with an unsigned digital amendment to our contract. They hadn't just tried to steal my life, they had planned for the aftermath. I stared at the papers. In front of me, hands steady now. They had been trembling days ago when this first started, but not anymore. I knew what I needed to do, so I set the trap. That weekend, I invited both of them for dinner. Alan arrived first, looking relaxed, confident. Sonia showed up 10 minutes later, wearing the same perfume she used to wear when we first met. It didn't stir any feeling in me now. Just nausea. "I'm glad you're finally moving on," she said, setting down a bottle of wine. "You seem stronger." "I am," I said. "Thanks to both of you." Alan raised a toast. "To healing." We clinked glasses. I served them myself. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, all her favorites. The irony made it taste better. We ate, laughed. They played their roles like they always had, smiling, asking about my therapy, pretending they hadn't plotted to erase me. The wine made them talk more than they should have. Alan told a story about a deal he was brokering. Deal! With my name. Sonia kept rubbing her necklace, the one I gave her on our second anniversary. After dessert, I excused myself and returned with a black folder. "I want to show you something," I said. Alan looked up, still chewing. Sonia blinked, already uneasy. I laid the folder on the table, slowly opened it, spread the contents like cards on a poker table, insurance forms, text messages, calendar entries, email printouts, photos. And finally, the letter from the pharmacy showing that the supplements I'd been given during my recovery were not standard. Vitamins. Alan's fork clattered against the plate. Sonia stopped breathing. I sat down, folded my hands calmly, and looked them both in the eye. "I woke up too early, didn't I?" Alan stood abruptly. "You went through our things?" "No," I said. "I went through my things, in my house, paid for with my name." Sonia tried to speak. "Lamont, you planned it," I said, voice flat. "Carefully, slowly. Dosage schedule, policy transfers, discreet calls. The only thing you didn't plan for was me waking up and remembering how to read." Alan's face was twitching now, eyes darting to the folder. There were screenshots of insurance policies. Mine, ones I didn't remember signing. Health, life, asset transfer protocols. In one image, Alan had forwarded Sonia a scanned form, full death benefit to spouse and business partner in the event of irreversible neurological damage. Another file, a calendar entry, date marked, final dosage, after next PT session. My mouth went dry. They hadn't just moved on, they hadn't just fallen in love, they had planned to end me, slowly, quietly, through caretaking and pills, through forged documents and grief. They weren't counting on me waking up, they were counting on me dying quietly, without asking questions. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through my teeth, knuckles white around the phone. They wanted my name, my company, my silence. But now, they were going to get something else entirely. I didn't tell Melissa what I found. She was kind, maybe even on my side, but I wasn't risking anything now. Not when every conversation, every glance, every breath might be monitored. They wanted me out of the picture, and I had just stepped back into the frame. The first step was pretending nothing had changed. For the next 3 days, I went along with Their plan. I answered Alan's casual texts, thanked Sonia when she dropped off a fruit basket. I smiled when neighbors asked how recovery was going. I let everyone believe I was still grateful to be alive, still adjusting, still too soft to suspect what was bubbling under the surface. But every night, when the house fell quiet, I dug deeper. I traced the insurance company's phone number and called using a disposable SIM card. Posed as Alan's assistant, requested a policy review. The agent didn't hesitate. Alan's signature was on the file. So was Sonia's. The payout structure was crystal clear. In the event of my death, Sonia would receive the full insurance benefit. Alan would inherit my share of the company, already agreed upon in principle with an unsigned digital amendment to our contract. They hadn't just tried to steal my life. They had planned for the aftermath. I stared at the papers in front of me, hands steady now. They had been trembling days ago when this first started, but not anymore. I knew what I needed to do, so I set the trap. That weekend, I invited both of them for dinner. Alan arrived first, looking relaxed, confident. Sonia showed up 10 minutes later, wearing the same perfume she used to wear when we first met. It didn't stir any feeling in me now, just nausea. "I'm glad you're finally moving on," she said, setting down a bottle of wine. "You seem stronger." "I am," I said, "thanks to both of you." Alan raised a toast. To healing. We clinked glasses. I served them myself. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, all her favorites. The irony made it taste better. We ate, laughed. They played their roles like they always had, smiling, asking about my therapy, pretending they hadn't plotted to erase me. The wine made them talk more than they should have. Alan told a story about a deal he was brokering, my deal, with my name. Sonia kept rubbing her necklace, the one I gave her on our second anniversary. After dessert, I excused myself and returned with a black folder. "I want to show you something," I said. Alan looked up, still chewing. Sonia blinked, already uneasy. I laid the folder on the table, slowly opened it, spread the contents like cards on a poker table. Insurance forms, text messages, calendar entries, email printouts, photos, and finally, the letter from the pharmacy showing that the supplements I'd been given during my recovery were not standard. Vitamins. Alan's fork clattered against the plate. Sonia stopped breathing. I sat down, folded my hands calmly, and looked them both in the eye. "I woke up too early, didn't I?" Alan stood abruptly. "You went through our things?" "No," I said. "I went through my things, in my house, paid for with my name." Sonia tried to speak. "Lamont?" "You planned it," I said, voice flat. "Carefully, slowly. A dosage schedule, policy transfers, discreet calls. The only thing you didn't plan for was me waking up and remembering how to read." Alan's face was twitching now, eyes darting to the folder. I didn't need the firm anymore. What I needed was distance. I moved out of the city, bought a quiet property along the coast, small cottage, ocean view. No neighbors. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to deadlines or betrayal. Just silence. Real silence, the kind that doesn't lie. Melissa visited once. She brought photos from her graduation. She'd gotten a scholarship I didn't even know she applied for. "I never said this before," she told me quietly, "but I always knew something was off. I just didn't want to believe it. You." "Don't have to explain," I said. She handed me a letter. Sonia's handwriting. "I didn't read it," Melissa added. "Didn't feel like I had the right." I took the envelope but didn't open it. Just set it on the shelf beside the fireplace and left it there, still sealed. Some ghosts don't deserve the dignity of final words. Alan tried to contact me once through a burner number, left a voicemail, no apology, just a bitter monologue about everything he lost. He blamed me for all of it. Typical. Even. In ruin, he couldn't admit he built his life on a stolen foundation. I deleted the message, then blocked the number. But there was one last thing I needed to do. One final thread. I drove back to the city on a cold morning, pulled up in front of the hospital where I'd spent my recovery, walked through the same corridor where I'd once been wheeled in, unconscious, tubes down my throat. But I wasn't going to a patient room this time. I walked straight to the records office. I showed them my ID, requested a full audit of my treatment. Logs. It took 2 hours, a signature, and one phone call from my lawyer to make it happen. When I got the file, I flipped straight to the medication log. There it was, a schedule of vitamins, pain meds, and one unapproved substance, not on any official treatment protocol, administered twice weekly, signed off by a doctor I didn't recognize. I took a picture of the page and forwarded it to the medical board. A week later, I heard that doctor's license was under investigation. He was one of Alan's old fraternity friends. Another pawn, another piece removed, but that wasn't the end. There was one more surprise left. A month after I returned to the coast, I got a package. No sender, just a plain box. Inside, Sonia's wedding ring, the one she said. The hospital lost. Wrapped in a note that said nothing but one word. Sorry. I stared at the ring for a long time, then I walked out onto the deck, leaned over the edge, and tossed it into the ocean. Watched it disappear into the waves. That was the final goodbye. That was the last page. Closure wasn't some grand moment. It was the absence of noise. No more voicemails. No more lies. No more pretending. Just me. Breathing. Living. Starting again. Sometimes at night, I sit on the edge of the cliffs, listening to the water crash against the rocks below. The sky stretches out, endless and clean, and for a while I feel like I'm not the man who almost died. I'm just Lamont, no titles, no betrayal, just a man who survived, a man who didn't get even. He got free. And that was the real revenge.